Hello and welcome back to Sketch Science. Yes, today we're going over the 2 C's, criteria and constraints, for when you're trying to design something, whether it be a toy, a car, a roller coaster, anything you're designing, a cell phone even. They have to have these 2 things to make sure that you're designing it properly. Now, first we're going to go to criteria. Most criteria is basically, what do you think of when you think of the thing you're trying to design? So when you're designing something, what do you think of? So let's say for this, we're designing a roller coaster. What would be the things you think of when you do it? Roller coasters, are they tall? Are they fast? Maybe do they look cool? These are all questions you ask yourself when you think of a roller coaster. And if you're designing a roller coaster, wouldn't you want to add in the things you would think of if you were thinking of a roller coaster? Otherwise, you could just kind of give it any criteria you wanted, do whatever you want, and then come back and you built a toaster oven instead. Nobody wants to build a toaster oven when they're trying to build a roller coaster. At least I don't think you do. If you do want to build a toaster oven instead, even though you're designing a roller coaster, that's good for you, but I don't think you'll be employed much longer by your company. So, moving forward on with criteria. So if you're thinking of that, when you're thinking of what you would think of with a roller coaster, criteria needs to be more specific though, because if you say, yeah, roller coasters are tall, well, what does tall mean? What does tall mean? What does it mean, guys? Tall. I don't know what that means. Well, that's why we have constraints. Constraints keep your criteria in line. They throw that lasso around it and pull it back down to earth. Constraints take criteria and give them specifics. So if you're taking criteria and giving them a specific, say maybe bells that ring in the middle of a school day to signal the beginning and the end of the day. If your criteria is it has to make noise and it has to beep at a certain time of the day, well, that's good. But what time of the day is that? What sound does it make? Maybe you make a constraint where it makes a light, pleasant double ring each time it goes off. And it goes off at exactly 3:35 p.m., 2:35 p.m. If you give them those constraints, you can make it a lot easier to design that system. So you take that criteria and give it specifics. So let's go back to our roller coaster. Let's go with how tall. Now we can finally say what tall means, because before I was having a crisis, because what does tall mean? In the case of a roller coaster, how about 120 feet tall? There we go. Now you know how tall. That's your constraint to your criteria. So on this side is your criteria. On this side is your constraint. So how tall, 120 feet? How fast? I want it to go 60 miles per hour because we're using American units today. So how tall, 120 feet? How fast, 60 miles an hour? You just made it a whole lot easier to design that roller coaster. But now we run into another problem. Does it look cool? Or what does it look like? If you have that as your criteria, is it cool? Well, what is cool? Everybody has a different idea of cool. How can you decide what everyone else is going to think? Do you look at other roller coasters and design off of them? Do you just kind of come up with a color scheme? What does that mean? Well, constraints are real easy to put together when you have a definite answer. But when it's an opinion piece criteria, well, that's more personal. There really is no constraint you can put on it other than looking at the outcome and seeing what people think. That's more of an afterthought. So does it look cool? Well, you can design cool however you want. But at the end of the day, if no one agrees with your idea of cool, like I could wear all different mismatched neon clothing every day of the year and think I'm looking fly. But I could walk down the street and everyone thinks I'm a nut job. That's what happens with your criteria. My criteria for cool was met because I thought I was the coolest guy ever. I met my own personal constraint, but everyone else around me thought I was an idiot. Well, that's the problem with criterion constraint for non-quantifiable. Non-quantifiable. Non-quantifiable means you can't put a number to it. It's all based off of human decision. Non-quantifiable, you can't put a number on it. That makes it a lot harder to make a constraint. You can still make a constraint for cool. Your idea of cool is primary colors. That means as long as everything's red, yellow, and blue, and only red, yellow, and blue, you met that criteria of cool because you gave it a specific meaning of cool. If cool means primary colors, then red, yellow, and blue is your constraint. That's how those two interact with each other. As long as you can put a number on it, they're real easy to tell which is which. But as soon as you take that number away and you say, hey, I want it to be done this way, but there's no definite of what everyone's this way is, there's no agreeing, then you have a problem. These are all done for designing and systems. Designs. Systems. They all need to work somehow. They're all designed to work somehow. And how they work is meeting criteria and constraints. Now, I know this was a relatively quick one, and I said a lot of big words. But remember, criteria is what you think. Criteria is what you think. Constraints are what you want. That's how I'm going to phrase it. Criteria is what you think of when you think of something you're trying to design. Constraints are what you want in that design, the specifics. So when you think of something, what do you want to match what you think? That is the difference between criteria and constraints. So if you enjoyed that little video, if there's any questions you have, please leave a comment down below. And if you could, like the video, because I appreciate it, YouTube appreciates it, and it makes it a lot easier to find this video if you ever need to go back to it. And finally, subscribe so that you don't miss any more content, and you can be the first to the videos when they do come out, so you can suggest any videos you might want in the future, or ask any questions before anyone else gets there, so you can be the first to get an answer. So as long as you comment, like, and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it, and I think you could really benefit from it too. So have a nice day, and I will see you next time.